So shall I start, Eric?
Please.
Okay. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. I'm going to present my workshop now, but before that, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Renu. I'm from Chennai, India, and I absolutely love telling stories for all age groups. I also teach storytelling, and I love teaching too because I remember when I was a child, I wanted to become a teacher, but I never did. I did get trained in Montessori, but I never took it up. But now I'm so glad that I'm actually following my passion. I'm teaching plus I'm telling stories. And like Karen shared with us, I do use a lot of musical instruments and I do use a lot of songs. I make them up myself, and I absolutely love this profession. So here's my workshop, The I in Stories. This thought occurred to me about about 6 months ago, and I thought it's very interesting. I wanted to see how much it's going to interest others. I did do this workshop for a group of Australian storytellers and they loved it. So I felt, okay, this is something I can present. So first, I want to ask all of you a question. If you want, you can unmute or you can put in the chat. What do you think is I in stories? Anyone? No one? Think?
Well,
Yes, the
if it's a
storyteller.
if
Yes,
it's a
yes.
personal experience story, I am telling the story.
Yes, Eric, that's also right. But yeah, like Hannah, I think Hannah got it right. The storyteller. Because 1 minute, I think there's somebody coming this side. I'm sorry. Is there a lot of noise?
No, it's okay.
You can hear me? Right. Okay.
Yep.
So, what I mean is the storyteller who tells the stories. Now, why I thought of this was what makes us choose a particular story? Or there are so many stories we listen to, we read, but how many do we actually share? Can you tell me why is it there are some stories that we choose to tell and some we just leave? Why do you think that is? Any idea?
It maybe depends on the reaction you've got from an audience before. It's like, you got good response and like you felt they got the story, it was enjoyed much. You like to repeat it again, depending on the audience.
Okay,
Yeah.
that could be one reason. Anything else? Yes, Karen, that's right. Yes. The story needs to resonate with us. Now, why does a particular story resonate with us? Any idea? Why does it resonate so much with us? There are some stories that we like to share over and over again. Why? Because that story resonates very, very right. But why? Why does it resonate so much? I just want you all to reflect and think because this workshop is going to be very, very interactive. I believe we learn more when we actually start sharing our ideas. I will also learn. So that's why I'm asking you this question before I jump into the workshop.
It resonates with us. Maybe we can identify ourselves with it, or we have seen this real life characters in our personal life. So it's like, so that's the reason we resonate something, be it a movie or a story. We resonate because it's similar to what we've experienced.
Yes, yes, that's one of the reasons. But anything
Our lives, what we like. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Yes, Rachel?
Um, when my son was in fifth or sixth grade, and even younger, he liked Peter Pan. And every night he wanted me to read Peter Pan. And what it was he didn't want to grow up. And Peter Pan is a boy who lives on an island and never has to grow up.
So what did you like about the story, Rachel?
So what he liked was it mirrored his theme, and that was the main character, and he got to live out his wishful thinking through that character.
Yes, but what attracted you to that story?
Just that I wanted to read to my son what he wanted to hear. I wanted him to love reading. So I was always looking for books that would reflect his interests at different ages.
Okay. But did you like the story personally?
Yes, I thought when I grew up it was magical. They went to Neverland and there was a dog, but it was not the story that resonated with me all through my childhood.
Okay.
The way it did with my son.
the way I look at this story, I'm just sharing what I got from the story when you shared just now. I feel that if I were to read that story, I think I would love that story because I am eternally young. All of us are eternally young because there is a little child in each one of us. Do you agree? Yes or no? Nobody is responding. So I'm taking it for granted that yes, all of you are agreeing with me that there is a little child inside each and every one of us. And that's why when we hear such stories where the child remains a child right through, not taking on the adult experiences, not going through so much stress, because children rarely have stress. They enjoy life as it should be enjoyed. As soon as we start growing up, we have so many inhibitions. We stop having fun. So I feel that, I would like to be an eternal child. I am like that. Though I'm getting older, I don't feel like that at all. So I feel that was one of the reasons. And yes, all of you were right. Why do we choose stories? Because for me, I choose stories personally that are in tune with my values. Something that attracts me is because something is already there within me that I find in that particular story. There could be humor, there could be something that shows, there is so much of gender disparity, right? In stories where they show the woman doing all the work all the time and the man sitting there and, just having a cup of tea or enjoying a good meal, or maybe he just goes out and comes back and the woman is stuck all the time in the house. I change that. I like to bust gender stereotypes. So that is another kind of story I like to tell, which attracts me. And then the other kind of stories I love is something which has an animal in it, because I love animals. I love the environment. So when I hear stories where there's a lot of something about animals, something about a forest or something about a tree, I love such stories. When I hear a story that has any one of these elements in it, I would like to share it. But if there's even one element in it which I don't like, I like to adapt it. So I'm sure most of us, when we listen to a story, if we feel this doesn't really go along with what I think or what I love, definitely we want to try and change it. So what I feel personally is that one thing is values. Another thing is, as storytellers, we're extremely, extremely powerful. Why are we so powerful? Because people are listening to us. And when they listen, something is going inside their head, they're absorbing. And when you're telling a story where you're either reinforcing stereotypes or you're telling stories that, because we say, there's a lot of truth in stories. So when you're telling a story, people believe you. So we have to be careful what we're talking about. So in case you're talking about an animal and you're demonizing that animal, people will really think, oh, the elephant is very bad, or the dogs are bad, they're crazy, they'll bite, they hurt us. But if you're talking about in a very nice way, when all animals are good, it depends on how we behave with them, and that is how animals will be with us. We're going to leave the audience with a love for all living things, a love for the environment, a love for, which is what we need to experience as human beings, because we are all part of this ecosystem. Humans are not on top of the ecosystem, we are just a part of it. So it's very important for all of us, especially for children, to grow up with this innate love. They already have an innate love. So for us to encourage that, we need to share such stories. So that's the reason I felt the I in stories is important, because you, the storyteller, you're choosing to tell a story, but you should choose to tell a story which is going to create a change in this world. Today we hear so many stories, and most of the stories are nasty. Most of the stories take away the peace in our heart and in our mind. We are hearing so much about what is happening on in the world. There's so much of war, there's so much of anger, there's so much of destruction, disruption. And definitely we would like to change that by telling the right kind of stories. We can actually make people feel happy that there is hope in this world. How many of you would like to agree with me in this? That we should share stories that make people happy. Yes, Sophie. You agree?
Yes, I agree with you 100%, Renu.
Yeah. So I felt that we should be very careful when we are choosing a story. We should decide first, what is it that I am understanding from this story? And what do I think the audience is going to understand? One thing we need to understand is, what I know about the story, what I have learned from the story may not be what the audience is hearing from the story. It could be a different message that is reaching them. So we need to explore the story from all perspectives. Is the story going to sound like this? Or if you don't know, if you feel, okay, I'm only getting 2 or 3 messages from the story, but I'm sure there's a lot more, because every story has so many layers. So many layers. And you can perhaps only see 3 or 4 of those, perhaps not more than that. So you need to share these stories perhaps with a few friends or with your family, at least 10 to 12 people, and ask them, what they think about the story. And you will be surprised to see the number of answers that come up. And that's a huge learning for us. So we need to know that, okay, this is the impression the story is creating. Do I still want to share this? Or do I want to leave it alone? Or do I want to change it a little bit so that, this story is going to take hope, happiness. I think these are the things you're really looking for in this world. Do you agree with me? That we really need to spread more of happiness, more of joy, rekindle that inner child, which is there present in every one of us. Whether you want to accept it or not, it is present. And when that child is actually wounded, all of us have perhaps some sad childhood memories. You may not be consciously aware of them, but they are stored in your subconscious. And that subconscious is very powerful because that's the one which makes you react to so many things. If you are aware of your thoughts and if you are aware of what you need to do with your life, all the time you're aware, okay, this is what the real person, and this is who I am really, then you can definitely not choose the kind of stories that are going to disrupt the minds of the audience. So I want you to do a small activity now. I want you to think back the kind of stories you all tell generally, often. Like I said, some story that you've been telling over and over again. Please write down that story. Just write down the title. And if you could, please share a gist of the story and why you love it so much. Just share a gist because there's no time to share the whole thing. You can share just a gist and tell us what is it that attracted you to this story. Write down just the title of the story, or if you don't want to write down, just think of it in your mind, and then each one of you can share it, please. I hope I'm not going too fast. I hope you can understand me, what I'm talking, especially people who are not from India, because I think I have this tendency of talking very fast, especially when I'm passionate about something. So if you can't, you're not able to keep up with me, my pace, please let me know so I can slow it down. If anyone is ready and would like to share, please go ahead. Thank you, Hannah. Yes, Rachel, I will slow down. Thank you for letting me know. Yes, most stories that attract us is the amount of wisdom that the story carries and the message. Anyone else would like to share?
I would like to share.
Yes, please.
It is about the trash cloud, I would say often to children and to the adults. So it'd be like, I would ask them, for the children, I would ask them to draw a brain and then bring about what are the thoughts they have. Now it's going on. And for the adult, it may be like, which is not very productive, which does not allow you, which keeps you stuck. So it is like this trash clouds, that is a trash inside, just without.
The cloud of trash you're talking about?
Yes.
Story from Pratham Books?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so to explain it to a little bit to the others, there is this story which is quite popular. It's about actually creating awareness of not throwing garbage everywhere, just to have a place where you keep the garbage. Especially in India, you find a lot of rubbish all over the place. So this story was created, I think, just to create awareness among us to not throw things all over the place, but to find a garbage bin and throw it only there. So this story is about, you can ask children, what did they learn from the story? What is it that is good about the story? Did they like the character? What happens to the character? This character, actually the main little girl, she throws garbage wherever she wants. Though her mother keeps telling her, don't throw it. Finally, a cloud of trash appears above her head and it's stinky. So none of the children agree to sit with her. So she's absolutely boycotted and she's very unhappy about this. So then her mother tells her, what do you think you can do about it? Then she starts putting the garbage in the right place, and then she picks up garbage that other people have thrown and starts, being very good about it. So finally, the cloud of trash, little by little, it disappears. So this is the story in essence. So I feel these kind of stories are important because it's teaching somebody a value, something important. It's a social message. And it's very good for adults also, because then most adults are the ones doing it and children follow them, because children learn more through observation than by instruction. So if the mother is doing the right job, then definitely the child will do. But the problem is, you see all the others around you. In fact, I have friends of mine who say, oh, what does it matter if I throw it here? So much is already there. So I said, yeah, it's because one person threw, the second person threw, the third person threw. If you throw, then 100% is going to throw after you. So please don't do it. So whoever's with me, they never throw because they know they'll get a lecture from me. So I think it's very important that when we share stories like this, you have understood the message as don't throw garbage wherever, right, Sophie? You've understood that. But do you think any other message you can get from the story?
Yes.
What are the message do you think?
The messages I get for the children, as you said, not throwing the trash also, and then even all the words that we throw, the judgmental words, I would say, then it is just addressing the bullying part in the school.
Okay, this you use for older children?
For the older children, I would say so many things, the stress they put in with the studies, and there are about 9 types of intelligence and only one is focused. So I would tell that
this is the trash you're putting inside your head.
Yes.
Not outside.
You're having so much of intelligence, you just focus on one and you determine that you are the marks. And I would say that to the children.
The trash inside your own head, which is bothering you and doesn't allow you to use your actual intelligence.
Yes.
Thoughts. Actually, thoughts are the trash, because we get the same thoughts over and over again. It's like, the trash can is overflowing with perhaps fruit peels or with the paper or all kinds of things. That same trash keeps coming back, right? Inside the head. Yeah, that's a very nice way of looking at the story. And for adults, what do you think? What do you think the message could be?
The adults is, yes, every time if I ask here also everyone, what is the experience, what is a good experience that you have, or the good memories you think for so long? But if I ask you what are all the bad experiences you have, it will come around more than so our mind. So what we record is very important.
Yeah. And also the fact that I just got a thought and it disappeared. Sorry. What did you say just now, Sophie? Something about
don't keep recording all the bad things is what I told you.
Okay. Yeah, that brings it back. The thought is back. Okay. So when you ask people to write down 10 good things about themselves, they will not get a single one. But you tell them to write 10 bad things about themselves, they will have a big list. I think this is something because our mind is negative. It records negative stuff. It does not record positive stuff. Because from childhood, we are always told we come from a, what shall I say, starvation mode. Not starvation, actually. What's that word? I'm not getting it. We don't come from abundance. We come from scarcity. Like, for example, a child comes home and tells the parent, Ma, I got 7 out of 10. The parent will say, but what happened to the rest of the 3? What happened? Why didn't you get that? So you're focusing on the not there, where you should be saying, wow, you got 7 out of 10. Great. Then you're looking at abundance. What is more, 7 or 3? 7 is more, right? But you will only focus on 3. So what happens to all of us? We focus on the negative things. We don't look at the positive things. So even when that is why stories are so important. We don't focus on the negative things. We focus. If you tell the story about a negative incident or something happened, but always the ending is positive. Because you say, okay, this is what he was, but by the end of the story, he has changed or she has changed. So that is the beauty of stories. But it's very important for us also to understand that the message that we perceive may not be the message that others are perceiving. Because I remember when somebody was sharing a story about this camel. Camel is lame, the camel is blind. I don't know if you know the story, but the camel is blind on one eye, he's lame on one leg. And then the camel driver is taking the camel along, and 3 men, and then the camel runs away. This man goes to sleep and the camel runs away, and the people come. This camel driver is now searching for the camel because he's taking, I think, to the next city or something to sell the camel. So then he meets 3 men on the way. This men say, is it lame or is it blind, and all those things. And then finally he finds the camel. So for me, the story is about this camel driver not taking care of the camel. I forgot about everything else. For me, the focus was, why was he so nasty to the camel? So every time you share a story, need not necessarily that The person who's listening is going to take the same message like you. Whereas the storyteller was just saying, you know, how those three men were so smart in discovering where the camel is, because she was focused on that. For me, the focus was, why is he so nasty? Because the king says, your camel is lost, I'll give you another healthy camel. It's like, you know, you're rewarding somebody who's already very nasty to the animal. So there are so many things, so many stories like this where we share, hoping that people will get the right message. And it's important for storytellers not to give the moral of the story, right? We don't believe in moralizing. We don't say, what did you learn? Or this is what you need to learn, because then you're closing their mind from imagining different answers. So that is why when you share a story, you have to be very, very particular. Am I looking at it from all angles? And am I telling the story where no matter who listens to it, they're going to get some positive message from it? So the more you share a story, the more you're going to understand that this, okay, somebody has shared Sudha Murthy's 5 spoons of salt. So Anusha, why did you choose this story? You have to unmute.
Yeah. Because I felt that story was very funny, and I'm basically absent-minded myself. So when I read the story, when I shared the story, and I feel it was age appropriate, and like, you know, children often like, you know, put away things, especially they take their parents for granted, the grandparents at home. If they say something, they are not very excited to do it. They'll keep putting it off. Like, you know, it's basically the story is about how a little girl keeps putting off whatever her parents, grandparents say at home. I'll do it later. And then finally what she does is, like, you know, when like, you know, she asked her mother to make something for her picnic, and her mother says, I will make it. And she made it the next day morning, and she'll say she made everything, and she said she had to leave the house to go somewhere. She said, just add 5 spoons of salt and take it to the picnic. So everybody in the house thought she will always forget, she'll always keep putting it off. So let me help her. And everybody in the house, they put 5 spoons of salt, thinking that they are caring for her. Like, you know, because she's absent-minded, eventually she's going to forget. And finally, when it comes to her own picnic basket, she remembered, and she also put 5 spoons. So they were 25 spoons in the end. And like, you know, how it tasted bad, and like how she learned the lesson never to put off things. So this story I always like, and I always tell everywhere, because as you said, it resonates with me. I keep forgetting things and, like, you know, keep putting it off. So it's a nice way to tell the children. And like, you know, it's and I also feel like, you know, when it comes to you, we are like, you know, very particular when it comes how we are all selfish. Like when it comes to us, we'll be like, you know, all ready, and we'll remember things, and like, you know, and we'll do it. So, and the intention of the parents also and the grandparents also was not to teach any lesson for her. They did it out of care, because they thought she'll eventually forget. So different aspects. So this is a story which automatically keeps coming for me, and I enjoy telling also. I, like, you know, as a storyteller, I don't think so much of what everybody will perceive it in what way. I don't think so much. I enjoy telling the story, so I tell the story many times. That's what I
It's a beautiful story, Anusha, and I love this story too, because one thing I really love about stories is where there's no punishment involved. Nobody punishes her. She doesn't learn from punishment. She learns from making the mistake herself. And she realizes all of them love her so much that they have actually gone out of their way to help her. The grandmother, the grandfather, the father, the mother, the brother, the sister, all of them have best intentions in heart. And none of them say, oh, let her learn a lesson. Let her
That's
not
what
do
I tell the children after the story. That's what I ask them also. Like, you know, why did you think they all put 5 spoons, each one of them? Why do you think they did? Like, while narrating the story also, I'll tell that and say, they'll think like she forgot that I had to iron the shirt. She forgot to bring my medicine. So she will forget this. This is that they wanted to help her. Like, you know, that's what I used to say. And they all laughed in the end. Like, everybody took it in a light spirit. They all laughed, and like, you know, that's how I end it. Yes.
At first she gets very angry, and then she realizes that all of them are trying to help her. So it's a very nice story, very nicely written and told. And it's one of my favorite stories too, because I feel that we very often punish children because we think that punishment will help them learn, but that's a wrong attitude to take. You need to explain to the child where they went wrong and then how they can correct themselves, and perhaps let them experience for themselves what has gone wrong, and then they will correct themselves. I feel that is very strong in my heart. I feel very bad when people punish little children, especially because they don't know what they've done is wrong. So that is another thing. Yeah. So anybody else who want to share a story?
Hi, can I share?
Yes, please.
Sorry, I'm not able to switch on my video. My daughter's using the same, she's
problem.
using Zoom on another device. So,
Go ahead.
so I always share this, I share this story, Bumoni's banana trees, many times with children. It's a beautiful story. It's set in Assam. And so Bumoni has a lovely backyard of banana trees. And it's close to the Kaziranga National Park. And one night, wild elephants cross over the river and come to her backyard and damage a lot of banana. I mean, they eat a lot of bananas and banana plants. So the family is in a fix now. They don't want, the elephants coming over. So now, how Bumoni solves this problem? So then I asked the children, like, if you were Bumoni, then how would you solve the problem? And they come up with a lot of ideas, like, we put crackers or maybe scare the elephants away. And then what actually happens in the story is she finds out about the citronella plant, which I think leaves out a smell, and elephants don't like that smell, so they stop coming. But Bumoni is not very happy because she goes on to think, why were the elephants coming in the first place? Where nobody else in the family is actually worried because they're happy now the elephants are not coming. But Bumoni is actually, she cares for the elephants, and then she's thinking, why were they coming in the first place? Maybe because they were hungry. So what will they eat now? So then the story ends beautifully, where she and her father, with the help of some forest officials, plant banana trees in the forest for the elephants. So I think it's a very beautiful story.
Yes, yes, I have told that story too, and it's a beautiful, beautiful story because here again you're focusing on compassion humans feel for animals, that we all need to live together in harmony. Instead of saying, okay, like you said, no, she gets suggestions that put crackers, do this, do that, because that's generally what they do, electric fences, where elephants actually lose their life or they lose a limb. I think that's very cruel because mostly we need to understand. These are questions you can ask the children or the adults. What are we doing? Why are elephants, why are wild animals coming into our territory? Because we are encroaching into forests. We have there's so much of deforestation. So many animals are now lost. They don't get food and water in their own habitat. So they come searching for it. And that's how they come to human habitations. So it's very important for us to make reparations by saying, if they are coming into our space, what do we need to keep them in their own space? There are a lot of people doing this. In fact, there was a news item recently on Better India, where they say that there is a particular area, and I think again in Assam, where they're growing all kinds of crops just for elephants, because where they are living is the path of the elephant, where the elephant corridor. So when they plant all these things, the elephants are no longer coming to their fields and eating all their crops. So I think this is something we need to share, especially with children, because they are growing up into the adults that are going to take over the world maybe in a few years' time. Very important for us to tell them these stories, because they will then understand that yes, we need to live in harmony with all living things. That's a beautiful story, Sidhu. Anybody else want to share a particular story that you keep telling, or some story that you love to tell? Anyone wants to share? Actually, what I wanted to do was put you all in breakout rooms and for you to create a story among 3 or 4 of you and come back and discuss why you added your part to it, and then how the story was created together. Or I wanted each one of you to put you all in breakout rooms and discuss a story, one particular story. Any one of you could have chosen a story, discuss it and come back and share why you chose the story and what each of you understood from it. But I think there are very few people here, so I don't think breakout rooms will work. What do you think, Eric? You're muted, Eric.
Yeah, I think we should stay here and you say maybe tell a story, or one of us tell a story, and then we discuss what it means to us individually.
Okay. So do you want me to tell a story, or would one of you like to tell a story? Anyone?
Why don't you go first?
Yes. Lalita, Rachel, Karen, Sindhu, Anusha, Anchal, Sophie, anyone would like to share a story? It may not be very long. Share it the way you generally would for an audience, like children or adults, and why you're choosing the story. Anyone? The ones who don't have their cameras on, I don't even know if they're sitting there or where they are.
Renu, maybe you can share the story and we can discuss what
Okay.
we take away from.
Okay. Since nobody else is sharing, I'll go ahead and share. This is one of my favorite stories. There was once a camel driver who drove his camels from village to village to the distant city of Baghdad, where he hoped to sell a couple of them at least, because this is how he made his living. Now, one day, as he was passing through one of the villages, he stopped because there was this huge property, an orchard. And how did he know it was an orchard? Because it was surrounded by huge walls, tall walls. Because over the wall, one of the peach trees, the branches of one of the peach trees had overgrown, and on that branch hung 3 juicy, ripe peaches. And the skin of one of the peaches had split, and the rich juice was falling onto the ground. And a few ants had gathered there to suck up that delicious nectar. The man looked to the gate, and he could see the orchard owner sitting there, sipping a cup of coffee. And he thought to himself, how lucky this man is. He gets to sit right where his business is. He can make money just by sitting there on the chair. Whereas look at me, I have to travel from village to village, spending so many days, sometimes months away from my family. How lucky he is. Now, as he was thinking this, orchard owner was looking at the camel driver and thinking to himself, this man is so lucky. He gets to travel from place to place, meet different people, eat different kinds of food. How lucky he is. Now, as they were thinking this, the lead camel had seen the peaches. So she stretched her neck and started chewing on those peaches. As she chewed on those peaches, the orchard owner saw it, and he was furious. How dare somebody steal my peaches? So he picked up a stone and flung it at the camel. The stone hit the camel right in the center of his forehead, and she fell down dead. Now, seeing his best camel fall to the ground dead, the camel driver was enraged. He picked up a stone and without thinking, he threw it hard at the orchard owner. The orchard owner tried to duck, but he was too late. It hit him on the temple and he fell down dead. Now, a dead camel is one thing, but a dead human is quite another thing. Shocked and terrified by what he had done, the camel driver quickly untied the lead camel, tied it on the next one, and started to go away thinking, I hope nobody has seen me. I pray, I hope. But somebody had seen him. The orchard owner's sons had seen what had happened, and they came rushing out of the gate. They said, stop, murderer, murderer. They caught him by his collar and shook him and said, how dare you kill our father? A life for a life, a death for a death. You shall die. The camel driver said, no, it was an accident. I didn't mean to kill your father. I'm so sorry. He killed my best camel. Without thinking, I just threw the stone at him. I didn't mean to kill your father. Please forgive me. I have some blood money. He took out a bag of gold coins and he said, please take this. You think we are going to take your money? No, we want a life for a life, a death for a death. Do you think this money will replace our father? He will no longer come to the market to sell the peaches with us. We'll no longer have him at the dinner table sharing a meal with us. A life for a life, a death for a death. And no amount of wailing from the camel driver changed their mind. And they started dragging him towards the town. And as they started dragging him, lots of people started to follow. All whispering, what do you think has happened? What has happened? Why are they taking this man? And then soon they were at the temples, the town square. And then they called out, where is the judge? Where is the judge? The judge came along. What's the matter? He turned to the brothers. What's the matter? This man killed our father and we want a life for a life, a death for a death. The judge turned to the camel driver and said, is it true? The camel driver said, oh, yes, their father is dead, but it was an accident. I didn't mean to kill him. Please, I even offered blood money. Please, it was an accident. Are you willing to take the blood money? He asked the two brothers. No, a life for a life, a death for a death. My dear man, you have indeed taken their father's life. so be prepared to die. Camel driver, feeling looking so sad, traumatized. But there was no mercy. The judge called for the executioner, and the executioner came with a long, sharp sword. A sheepskin rug was placed on the ground, and the judge said, "Kneel on it and say your last prayers." The camel driver, shivering, with tears falling down his cheeks, knelt down and started to pray. Then suddenly looked up and said, "Isn't the condemned man given at least one last wish?" "Yes. What is your wish?" "Please, please, let me go back home. I will come back in 3 days' time. Please, please, I have some urgent work. Please let me go." "Let you go? Well, I can let you go on one condition. If any one of these good people here in the crowd is willing to take your place." "Ha! Who's going to take his place? Oh, what does he think he is? Huh? He is going to run away. He's never going to come back. He's a murderer, a criminal," said the people in the crowd. "I give my word, Your Honor. I give my word. I will come back after 3 days. Please let me go." "Well, there's no one willing to take your place, so be prepared to die." Then a voice came from the very end of the crowd. "I'll take his place." Everybody turned to look. It was an old man, with a long white beard, very stately looking. With his spine straight, he came towards the camel driver. "I'll take your place, my good man. Go," he said. Thank you so much. I'll be back in 3 days. I'll be back in 3 days." But the judge turned to the old man and said, "Do you understand what this means? If this man doesn't come back, you're going to lose your head." "I understood. I'll take his place," said the old man. And so the old man was led towards the jail, and the camel driver got onto his camel and he was gone. Everybody turned to each other and said, "What a mistake. Stupid old man. He is going to lose his life. As if this man is ever going to come back. Let's go." And they all disappeared. 1 day went by. 2 days went by. The 3rd day came and went. No sign of the camel driver. The crowd had gathered once again because an execution was going to take place. Everybody is saying, "See, thank God I didn't take his place. Thank God I didn't do it." Who would actually believe that camel driver? The old man was brought out. A rug was placed on the ground. The judge said, "Sit down. Kneel down and say your last prayers." So the man knelt down, said his prayers, looked at the executioner and said, "Make it quick." The executioner raised his sword. Just then somebody said, wait, stop. Because from a distance you could see a camel being driven in full haste, cloud of dust following him. Man came very close. His face was covered. He jumped down from the camel, removed his cloth. Oh my God, the camel driver's back. Imagine this. Everybody was shocked. And the camel driver lifted the old man and said, "Thank you for taking my place. I'm so happy I came back on time." He knelt down and said, "I'm ready to die." Wait, said the judge. "Tell me, why did you go back home for 3 days?" "You see, an old woman in my town had given her jewelry and her money to me for safekeeping. I had to go back and return it to her because I had not told my family about this. And if I had not gone back, my family would have been in trouble. They would have called us thieves and they would have been chased out from the town. So I had to go back." "And why were you late?" "Because you see, when I told my son I will not come back, he clung on to my legs and he said, no, don't go. He refused to sleep. So I had to sing to him. I had to tell him a story. And when he slept, I hugged my wife close and I left as fast as I could. And I'm so happy I'm on time. I am ready to die." Wait, sister. "And you, old man, why did you decide to take his place?" "Well, when I was growing up, when a man gave his word, he kept it. And when the camel driver said he's giving his word, I decided to believe him. And what would you have done if he had not come back? Well, I would no longer want to live in a world where a man gives his word and doesn't keep it. Everybody said. And the judge said, well, when I was growing up, there's no justice without mercy and compassion. No blood will be spilt today. He turned to the brothers. Are you willing to take the blood money? Yes, yes, we are, said the brothers. And so that's that, said the judge. Let's all go in, make merry, share more stories, and stay happy, he said. And that is the end of the story. Thank you.
So what do you especially love about this story?
Well, it's about truth. It's about belief. It's about faith in humanity. And it's a judge saying that without mercy and compassion, there's no justice. I think all of that really appealed to me. I heard this story quite a few years ago, and I've been sharing it many times. So this is the reason I feel, I don't know, as an audience, you have any other message coming to you? Can you please share that?
Well, it's the honesty of the man that he comes back. That's what melts everyone's heart.
Anybody else would like to share? Thank you, Sophie. Any message that you got, Sophie? Anybody else who got a different message?
I got the message that a love, or it can be called a mankind or humanity, whatever, that is in the higher position always. That is more important than anything in this world.
Yeah. I'll tell you, Karen, I just want to find out if anybody else has got a different message. Anybody else would like to share?
Yeah, so I got the message. Can you
Sorry,
hear
1
me?
minute, Sindhu. I think Rachel has got a hand up.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
Rachel.
That's okay.
Please go ahead, Rachel.
I too would not want to live in a world where I couldn't believe that when a person gives their word, that they wouldn't keep it. So I too believe that when somebody gives me their word, they will keep it.
Yes. I think promises are very important, that when you say, I'm giving my word, you should keep it. I believe in that personally. I always tell myself, I will not promise unless I can keep that promise. Even with my own children, I would never promise them something unless I'm very sure I could fulfill it. Anybody? Yes, Sindhu, you wanted to share something.
Yeah, so the reason why the camel driver was actually in the situation, I think it all started from anger and retaliation. So I think that part kind of appealed to me. That
Yes, yes. See, the thing is, what I wanted to share with you was the other thing that I learned from the story is that all of us prefer to react rather than respond. If both of them had taken just a few seconds, like if the orchard owner had thought it's just a matter of 3 peaches, what does it matter if the camel ate them? This whole thing could have been avoided. And if he had even killed the camel, and if the camel driver had just thought for 2 minutes, I can always go in there and ask for compensation. This man has killed my camel, so I need to ask him for compensation, and done that. But both of them have acted in haste. So the whole story went forward. Of course, the story has to go forward, but these are things for us to learn lessons from. Nowadays, I don't immediately react. I don't say things, because once you say the words, once you do a deed, you cannot take it back. This lesson I learned from my husband. He says, you're too impulsive. You're too, all the time you're saying things without any thinking. So I think things through now. I tell myself, okay, I don't want to get, I'm getting angry. Let me see. Is this anger worth it? What am I achieving? Is somebody going to be happy or unhappy after this anger? I'll be unhappy. Other person is going to be unhappy. What's the point? I can always calm myself down and then talk it over and say, this is what happened. This is what I'm upset about. Can you do something about it? And the other person is obviously going to apologize if it was that person's fault. And generally, we always like to blame others. Oh, he did this. She did this. Never saying, I am also responsible. I think stories, that's why stories are so important. It makes us reflect, makes us understand that certain things we can avoid by thinking differently or just keeping quiet, not speaking, not taking action. Yes, Karen, the story is from, you can find it on YouTube. It's a story that's told by Not it. Jan Blake. You'll find it on YouTube. It's called the Camel Driver, I think. You can look for it. She's a storyteller I greatly admire, and I follow her. I follow quite a few storytellers actually. The another storyteller is Donna Washington. She also tells beautiful stories. So you can catch them all on YouTube actually. I keep going through YouTube just to find new stories, and I found lots of them. Stories that appeal to me personally. So like I said, the values, the morals that we hold within us. So can you, each of you, share, if you're willing to, on the chat or unmuting yourself, what is the 1 or 2 values that you hold so close to you that you will not ever give it up? Think and tell me.
Renu, one more thing which I learned from this story, this camel story, is the judge, he was willing to give when the whole incident happened, he said you have to die. But when the time was borrowed, when 3 days passed, and when things changed, it's like, the verdict also changed. The judge changed his mind after 3 days. So I feel like, time also, if like, when you take time to make a decision, time also heals, your perception changes. In those 3 days, all these things happened. It's like, what if that man didn't come back, or what if an old man didn't come, like, for in his place? What ifs, like, if you look at what all the other what ifs, it's like, he would have died. It's like, the justice wouldn't have been given. But the time healed, the time borrowed time, like, changed the verdict. That's one thing which I looked at it from a different angle.
But in what sense? See, Anusha, it's not just the time. It's the fact that the camel driver came back and gave the reasons why he went, and then he came back. And then the old man also said, I believed him when he gave his word, and then I was willing to die because I no longer want to live in a world, and that impresses the judge.
Yes.
Both
So what I'm trying to say is these two things happened after 3 days, right? So the 3 days has made a change, is what was my observation in the story.
No,
It's
I
like,
think
the 3 days time was given, like, for the change to happen.
Okay.
So that's my thought.
And the judge also says, no, when I was growing up without mercy and compassion, there was no justice.
Exactly.
He actually would have let the camel driver go if the 2 brothers had not insisted life for a life or death for a death. Because
Yes.
for him also, like you said, yes, maybe perhaps time has played. Because for others, it was instant. The father died, they want instant justice.
Yes.
But
I feel when things are on a hurry and an instant, when there's no time, like, decisions are different. That's what I meant.
Yeah, very rashly taken, because both the incidents happen very quickly. He kills the camel, he kills the man within seconds.
Yes.
So then the orchard owner's sons also want instant justice. They said, this has happened instantly, I want instant justice. Life for life, death for a death. But they don't get that satisfaction because the old man takes this man's place, because they don't expect anybody to take the place.
Yes.
That's the old man saying. He's lived a long life. He has experienced everything. He's saying, I'm prepared to die because I don't want to live anymore in the world where a person gives his word and doesn't keep it.
Yeah, yes.
Right. And I think as you grow older, you're very willing to give up your life because you say you're already so jaded. Oh, what is this? Life is only getting worse. I might as well die. If it was a very young man, he probably wouldn't have done that. He probably wouldn't have taken his place.
Yes. And he wouldn't have been that wise also.
Yeah, probably. Because it's life's experiences that teach us, right? Make us wiser. Hopefully. Doesn't mean older, doesn't mean wiser. But so that's one aspect of the story. Yes. Now I want each of you to please think, reflect. What is the I have lots of values, but supposing you have 2 or 3 values that you hold very, very close to your heart, and it's a deal breaker. If this is a value somebody wants you to give up, you're not going to give it up ever, no matter who it is. What is the value? Remember, the stories you share are a reflection of you. That is why I in stories. Every story you share is a reflection of who you are as a human being. Like supposing somebody is telling a story where the animal is shown in a very bad light, I will tell myself, oh, this person doesn't like animals. Immediate reflection, right? As a person who loves animals, I will think, oh, this person doesn't have any compassion. Because a person with compassion will never show an animal in bad light. Because animals are definitely not bad. No animal comes into human habitation wanting to kill. They come only when they're desperate for food. No animal will attack. Even stray dogs, they will not attack you. They attack only when they feel threatened. Even a snake will not bite you unless you do something to threaten it. You stamp on its tail, or you go to a place, the eggs are there. Animals will not attack. I'm 100% sure. I have grown up with animals. I have seen snakes. I've seen snakes crawling past my legs. Nothing scares me because animals don't scare me. It's only humans who scare me. I have to keep looking over my shoulder when there are a bunch of men behind me. I think the men in India or anywhere in the world are more dangerous than any animal. I frankly say, because as a woman, I've experienced. I think everywhere in the world, women have experienced, right? Bad incidents from men. So I think the most dangerous creatures on earth are men, are humans. Not just men, human beings are the worst because we create the most damage to the environment, to animals, to everything. And we leave the biggest carbon footprint on the world, the kind of garbage we accumulate. So I think I'm not at all scared of animals. And I try to bring this out in my stories because I want children to grow up with compassion in their hearts. I think compassion and empathy is very important. Today is lacking. Listening skills also. People don't want to listen to other stories anymore. If I say, you know what happened to me the other day? I lost my nephew. Then the other person may say, oh, I also lost my brother-in-law. No question of, oh, I'm so sorry to hear about your loss. Because I'm sharing my loss. At least listen and don't immediately come up with your story. You know, this is the truth. Recently, last time my nephew died. And I shared this with another storyteller. The first thing she tells me is, oh, I lost my brother-in-law. I was really taken aback. I thought, my God, and I told her, I'm so sorry about your loss. So I think it's important for us to listen, not try to think of actually the other person is probably trying to console me saying, you're not the only one who lost somebody. I also lost. But I think my nephew was far more important than a brother-in-law, her husband's brother. How close can you be to your husband's brother? So I think it's very important for us to listen. Nobody listens anymore. That's the saddest part. So when I'm teaching my storytelling, I always tell people, listening is the most important skill for a storyteller. Because if you don't listen, you will not learn. You will not change, you will not evolve. Because every story you listen to, every conversation you have, every book you read is leaving its mark on you. You're evolving as a human being. You're shifting, perhaps unconsciously, but you are. Much of who I am is because of my parents, my friends, my family, the books I've read, and the movies I've seen, and the stories I share. I think everything is reflected. So that is why I in story is very important, because the stories you share, the stories you choose are reflections of you as a human being. I think this is something we need to keep in mind whenever we choose a story. And like I said, share it with others, close family, or whoever it is. Find out what are the messages. Like you said, you got a different message, Anusha. You said time, and I had not thought about it actually. I had not thought about this time handle. So there are so many things. I'm also learning. When I tell stories, when I'm sharing stories, when I'm doing a workshop, I learn a lot too. That is why I make it very interactive. I don't want me just talking. I'm very disappointed there are so few people. If it had been a bigger thing, we would have gone into breakout rooms. So much more learning would have come out. I want each one of you to share. Yes, please, Karen.
So I want to say that story that you shared was really, really profound to me, because one of the values that I value tremendously is the value of keeping my word. But I say I'm going to do something, I do it. If I say I'm going to be there, I'm going to be there. If I'm not going to be there, then I change my word and say I'm not going to be there. But I don't say the word, I will try to be there.
I will try.
I'll either say I'm going there or I'm not there, but not I'm going to try there. So back in the 1970s, I think I might be older than many of you here. In the 1970s, in the United States, there was this program called EST. It was a program where people would spend a weekend, a very intense weekend, learning about yourself. I guess you could say it was a weekend learning about how people function in the world. The main message was about keeping your word. That was the main focus of these weekends. And so it was actually in the early 1980s. I did the program called EST, and it was really profound for me because I learned how keeping your word, it reflects in every aspect of your life, from the way you behave to other people to also the way you behave to yourself. So keeping your word for yourself. If you say you're going to do something, that you follow through and you do that. If you say you're going to start an exercise program, then you keep your word and then you do it. And the importance of keeping your word. So your story really hit me profoundly, because that is a value that I have. The second thing you said that is also a huge value that I have is acknowledging other people. And that when you have a conversation with someone, not only do you listen, but you acknowledge what the person said and you ask a follow-up question about whatever it is that they're talking about. So if someone says, I went on a vacation in Mexico, you don't launch into, well, I also went on a vacation in Mexico. You say, well, that's terrific that you went on that vacation. What are some of the things you did on your vacation? And you acknowledge and you help that person to feel good about who they are. So the two values that you brought out are things that are so deeply important to me. And I tell stories, many stories about those subject matters, but I'd not heard that story that you told. And it was intriguing to me because it was the kind of story you could tell to an adolescent or an adult. And it had a very deep meaning because I didn't know where the story was headed. It was not predictable. So the fact that I wondered is, even though I'm feeling very tired and it's really late here, I thought like, I've got to stay on and hear that story. Where is it going?
Thank
Because
you,
that was
Karen.
really, really very profound that, you don't want to live in a world where people don't keep their word.
Yes.
So I live in Los Angeles, and when people come here, a lot of times people feel like in this place in particular, many people don't keep their word. There's people say, hey, you want to do lunch? It means nothing. It doesn't mean, do you want to go to lunch? So when someone says to me, do you want to do lunch? Then I respond with when exactly and where, and give me a date and time, because people just say it. They don't mean it. A lot of people say a lot of things they don't mean.
Exactly.
So
Very true. Very
yeah.
true. Virtual hug to you, Karen.
Yeah, so that was really great. Thank you.
Welcome. Yeah. Anybody else? Intu, would you like to share? Or Eric? Any value that you hold very close to your heart? Yes, Karen, for me also punctuality is very important. Even if it's a friend saying, let's meet at 10:30, I'm there by 10:15. Because for me, my time is precious. The other person's time is also precious. And of course, when they keep me waiting, I do get a little irritated. Sindhu, you'd like to share?
Yeah, so this value that I hold close is willing to give without expecting something in return. I think now it's become very calculative and manipulative. People are always wondering, what will I get? What's in it for me? But just that service mentality, to just do it because of course, it gives you satisfaction, but without expecting anything in return.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, kindness. That's basically being kind to people. Yeah. Yeah, I also believe in that. I have lots of values, but for me, I love animals and I will not watch somebody else being cruel to an animal. I've stopped many people from throwing stones at dogs because that's something children and adults enjoy doing. So I stop them. Wherever I am there, I stop. And then I love the environment and I love animals. So I don't eat non-veg. I don't take dairy. I'm vegan because cows go through a lot of pain when we take away the milk, we kill their young ones. So the more I learn about these things, more I'm willing to give up because I feel these are not things that I'm not going to die if I don't have dairy. And then I try to minimize my shopping. And I give away things when I feel I'm not used it for 6 months. I start giving away my clothes or things that I'm no longer attached to. I just give things away because I feel, why am I accumulating? I don't want to leave a big mess for my children to sort out when I'm gone. So I have started now really minimalizing everything in my house. Things like I had a piano, which I was wanting to learn, but I sold it recently. So things I feel, I don't want to keep anything which I'm not using. So lots of things like honesty, integrity. I will not tell lies, no matter what. If I'm going to get in trouble, I will get in trouble. So what? It's going to be momentary, then I will get over it. So there are certain things, no matter what, I will not give up. It's very deep rooted, it's very innate in me. So this is why I ask, because these are the values that are going to be reflected. Because very often people tell me, I create a whole lot of stories myself for children, for adults, and they tell me, always your stories have women liberation. You have stories where there are animals in it. You have stories where there's environment in it. I said, that naturally comes to me. I've written so many stories. In fact, tomorrow I'll be sharing a story that I've written myself. And basically the stories I write about are stories that I've experienced myself or I've seen other people experiencing. I'm constantly observing. When I go for my morning walk, I'm observing things. I'm observing animals. I'm observing dogs, observe other humans. And these days, sadly, people are always on their phone. Even when they're walking, they're looking at their phone and walking. Sometimes I feel they're going to come and bump into me. And I move out of the way. And then at restaurants, you see 4 members of the family all with their phone. So I feel when we go to a restaurant, my family and I, none of us have our phones out. So these are all stories. Remember, these are all stories. When you're looking at certain things, you'll actually fabricate a story out of it. So would you like to try and create a story together? Each of us share a line and then we'll create a story. Would you like that? It'd be interesting, right? Very few of us. Yes, Lena, so sorry, I didn't see your hand. You wanted to share something, Lena? Lena, are you there? Okay. I don't know whether she's there, but how many of you would like to create the story together? If the people are on video off, can you please come on video so that we can see your faces while you're sharing the story, creating it? I've created stories like this with children. I asked the children, would you like to start with one line? The child will start. Then another one will add. And then if it's about animals, I'd say, what is special about this animal? They'll say, okay, this monkeys love to sing. And I said, what about the tiger? The tiger loves to play games. So like that, they all come out with characteristics. So then we create a story and then we end it. I gently end the story because the children don't know
Hello,
how.
Renu. Sorry,
Yes, Lina.
I'm actually on mobile and I didn't find the buttons at the right
Okay.
time. So sorry
No
about
problem.
that. So the value discussion, I just wanted to add to that authenticity is a value that I feel is very rare, and even I learned it very late. Because my family was very socially aware family, and we tried to be nice. So in that being nice, authenticity used to get compromised. So not very aware choice, but when we are authentic, we are not scared even to say a no. And when we say no because something does not work out for me, at the same time we don't realize it, but we are also being correct for the other person, like because it will not be a good match in the end, because you are not doing something wholeheartedly, you just wanted to be nice and you said yes, or you agreed to something, right? So when we are authentic, but it's scary when we finally learn to step into authenticity while we are connecting with others. That time niceness just happens. Even if we want to say no, we'll say it with a little lightness in it, that nahi yaar, nahi ho payega, like I can't, right? So that pressure drops from the situation, but still if I manage to stick to my no, ultimately it works out for both of us.
Yeah.
So that even I learned very late because of my background, and that happens in some cultures which are very socially, dominated. Like we cannot get away with people. Like people form very integral form of our lives, and we cannot live very aloof lives. Especially in countries like India, it's like everything is everybody's business,
Yeah.
and they have a right to know, they behave like they have a right to know, and we are at times like they didn't even tell us this happened, so
Yeah.
we also behave
There's
as
no
if it is
concept
right.
of space. There's no concept of space, Lina. We don't respect other people's personal space. I tell people everybody has personal space. This amount of space is personal space. Don't intrude in that, especially even for children. As parents, we have this habit of pulling the child's hand and say, come here, meet my friend. And then we say, oh, the
Correct.
friend does this. Oh, it's okay, it's only uncle. Could be a stranger to the child. Why do we allow this? And that is why as adults, we don't know how to create, how to keep that space. I'm very particular about space. Especially I brought my children also up like that. I said, you have to respect other people's intellectual space, social space, their private space. Do not give comments unless you're requested. Do not share your 2 bits worth without somebody asking you for it. That's something. And like you said, no,
And the
Lina,
beauty is
saying
when
no.
we don't, yeah,
You said,
the
Lina, you
beauty
said
is that,
no. Saying no is difficult, right? It is difficult, but it's very important. Like you said, it's very important because ultimately,
correct,
in the end, it ends up to be the right thing for you and for the other person. I have experiences.
correct,
When I've asked people, where did
correct,
you get this musical instrument or where did you find this story? They will not answer. So I tell myself, I go ahead and I find it, and I tell myself it's a good thing that person said no because I really did research and I found something even better.
correct,
Even for
correct,
stories, so many times I've struggled in the beginning of my storytelling journey. People will not share things. People will not tell you where to go, what to do, where to go and attend storytelling session. I started doing my own research. When somebody doesn't invite me to something, I will create that opportunity. And I've given many people opportunities. I've created a platform where I invited other people to come and tell stories. Even now starting a children's storytelling festival where I give opportunities to others to come and share stories. I think that has been a huge lesson for me, that when people say no, I'm very happy. I thank them, in fact. Oh, good you said no, because now I have found how I can be independent, how I can do things on my own. I don't need anybody's support. So that's, I think, a very huge lesson for all of us.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing, Lena. And something else you wanted to share? I'm sorry, I jumped in.
No. This is it. It's like when we stop getting forced, we also stop forcing others.
Yes.
That is also a byproduct.
100%.
But
I used
for
to be
that,
like that.
it has to start with being authentic. If I don't listen to my no, then it doesn't come out of my mouth.
Exactly. I used to try and force people, to do things. Then I realized, oh my God, when I want my no to be respected, I definitely have to respect other people's no also. So now it's all good. Okay, so now shall we create a story together? All of you are on board? At least the ones on video, I think, are on board. 3 people have not put their videos on board. So it's okay. So who wants to start with the first slide? It can be any kind of story, anything at all. Let's see where it takes us. Sure, Karen. Bye-bye. Good night. Have a good night's sleep. Thank you for staying for so long.
Thank you.
Take care. Okay, so let's start. Who would like to start? Just start off with a line. It's so crazy how the story can go.
Start.
Yes.
Once upon a time, in a village, there was a big well, very deep.
Okay, deep well. Okay. Next person. Anybody wants to continue?
I'll continue. Once upon a time, there was a village and there was a deep well in that village. One night, there was a sound from the well.
Next. Who wants to go next? Just you say imagination. Doesn't matter what you say. It's okay. It's only a story.
Can I go?
Yes.
It was as if somebody was calling out for help.
Next line. Anybody? Actually, like this girl Anusha did, all of us should actually tell the story from the beginning, then we will remember. Otherwise, sometimes, tend to remember the...
Yeah, that's what I do with my students, because the
Yeah.
continuity will be there.
Would you like to tell from the beginning, Sindhu?
Once upon a time, in a village, there was a deep well. One night, there was a sound coming out of the well. It looked as if somebody was calling out for help.
Okay. Who's the next person? Yes, Lena.
I'll try. Once upon a time, in a village, there was a deep well. One night, there was a sound coming from the well. It looked as if someone was calling for help. Meera sat up on her bed. She was perplexed because she had never heard any sound coming out of the well before.
Eric, you want to go next?
Well, Mira woke up, is it?
Yeah,
Mira.
you have to share from the beginning, Eric.
Oh, I can't go from the very beginning. We know that there's a well and there's a sound coming. And is it that a woman named Mira heard the sound, and she got up and she went outside and she looked down into the well and she kept hearing these sounds that it sounded like a person, but how could it be?
Anyone else? Everybody else has the cameras off. Okay, so I will continue the story. Once upon a time, there was a village. In that village, there was a deep well. Inside that well, there was a sound, and the sound sounded like a call for help. And when Meera heard the sound, because the well was very close to her house, She sat up in bed. She wondered, what is that sound? And so she went out. She went out and looked down into the well. And she thought it could be a human voice. But how was that possible? How could a human being be inside that well? Well, she stood there very puzzled. Should I do something about this? Because now the sound was no longer there. Hello, she shouted into the well. Hello, the echo came back to her. Hello, is somebody there? Were you shouting for help? Were you shouting for help? Okay, doesn't sound like there's anyone there. Oh, she stretched and went right back to bed. Continue, Anusha.
It's me who have to take a slide from there, no? Can I?
Oh, sorry. Yes, Sophie.
Yeah. So she sighed and she went back. So from the well, once upon a time there was a village, and the village there was a deep well, and there was a sound from the well, and it was like somebody calling from inside. And Veena woke up and she came and saw there was nobody there, and she thought whether somebody, and so she called back, and it was only her echo. Then she thought she can go back to sleep. Up on the tree was a monkey who called her Veena, and she just turned.
Yes. Next.
And I passed it on.
Thank you, Sophie. The name is Meera.
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask. Veena or Meera?
Meera. I think Sophie heard it as Veena. It's Meera. Hmm. Try to keep the story as much as possible. Okay, so here we are testing our listening skills also. So you really have to listen very keenly. If you didn't hear, then ask the person to repeat it.
Meera was wondering, where did she hear
Start
this?
from the beginning, Anusha. You have to start from the beginning.
Once upon a time, there was. As Eric, it's difficult for me to remember the whole thing.
This is the thing. No, we have to also test our memory and test the sequencing, whether we remember. You don't have to give the entire thing. Just say village, well. Inside that well, there's a sound. From the sound, it sounded
yes.
like a cry for help. It sounded like a human voice. Meera heard it. She sat up in bed. See, I can recall because my mind is just taking the skeleton part of the story.
Yeah, Meera got up and she thought it was somebody calling. And then when she came out and saw, she heard a monkey calling Meera. And she turned.
You forgot one part of it. So the Meera called out and said, hello, is somebody there? Do you want help? And there was only echo coming back. So she went back to bed.
Okay.
She heard the sound again, Sophie, and she came out.
Yeah.
Okay. Then this time she heard a monkey saying, hi, Meera.
Yeah. Meera was confused. Is the sound coming from the well, or is it the monkey? She's looking at the monkey, she's looking at the well. She's looking at the monkey, she's looking at the well. She's confused. Wait, am I imagining the sound, or is somebody actually calling me?
Okay. Next, who wants to go next? Yes, Sindhu.
So once upon a time in a village, there was a deep well, and there was a sound coming out of the well, and it looked like somebody was asking for help. And Meera was sleeping in her room close to the well, where she heard the sound, and then she got up and she went to the well and she looked down and she asked, "What's happening? Who is this? Do you want help?" And she only heard her echo coming back. So she thought there's nobody, and she went back to sleep. And then there was a monkey on the tree near her house, near her room. And Meera looked at the monkey, and the monkey looked at Meera, and she was wondering if it was the monkey talking or if it was the well talking. And the monkey then showed some signal to her, asking her to come out and walk with the monkey to the well. And so Meera walked with the monkey and went back to the well.
Anybody else wants to go? Lena, you want to go next? Just say once, village, well, deep well, sound, cry for help. Just like that, if you say is enough. You don't have to go to the
Acha.
story.
Okay, once upon a time in a village, there was a deep well. I'll say whatever I remember.
Yeah, sure.
One night, there was a sound coming out of the well. It looked like someone was calling for help. Meera woke up and sat up on her bed. She was confused because she had never ever heard sound coming out of this well. She went there and she felt that someone was calling for help. Hello, hello, she said, do you need help? You need help, need help, need help. Then she realized it was just her own echo. She yawned and she went back to bed. And then she heard the sound again. So she came back out again just to see a monkey sitting on a branch there. She looked at the monkey looked at her. Meera also looked at the well. Is the sound coming from the well or is the monkey making the sound? She was confused. The monkey then called out to her and asked her to join, to go towards the well. The monkey started going down the stairs of the well, and something went down the spine of Meera. In all these years, she had never figured out that there were stairs leading down the well.
Okay, I'll continue the story. I think we need to end it pretty quickly because already 12:16 and Eric is very particular about time. 12:30 is my finishing time, right, Eric? Okay. So the monkey went down and down and down. You know, every well has these steps so that you can go down and perhaps for digging the well or whatever. And Meera just watched. After some time, she lost sight of the monkey because the well was really, really deep. Though the moon was shining, she couldn't really see what was happening, but she could still hear the sound of the monkey making noises going down. And then suddenly the monkey came clambering up again, then went down again, then went up again. And Meera was wondering, why is the monkey doing this? Does the monkey want me to do something? What can I do? I'm all alone here. I can't even ask for help. It's so late in the night. I really wish I understood monkey language. I wish I could ask the monkey, what is it that you want? But she was helpless. Again, the monkey went down, down. Again, the monkey came back. Anybody else would like to continue?
Yes, I would like to continue. Then, when Meera saw, again she could hear that voice from the well. And it was the well that was crying. And then Meera asked them, what happened? Did you call me from the yes, it was me. I was just wondering why nobody is coming there. Before, children used to jump from high and enjoy the water in my well. But now everybody are with their gadgets, I believe, with their mobiles and with their TV. And no children is coming here for fun. So I'm just worried about the children's safety.
Actually, you know, you took the story to where I was going to end it, Sophie. I was going to say it's the bell who's talking. Okay, and anybody else wants to continue? Or shall we end the story? Sindhu, you want to continue? Sindhu, continue. I think you got an idea. Continue.
No, I was asking you to end the story.
Okay. So the bell started talking to Meera and saying that, you know, nobody comes and plays in my water. The monkey was trying to communicate that with you. And the only reason I was calling out for help is because I feel very, very lonely. There's hardly any water. Earlier, people can't climb down the stairs and they dig me up, remove all the soil and the dirt. Now only people are throwing things into me. You know, they no longer respect me. They're throwing so much of rubbish into me and I'm dying. I want somebody to help me. Can you please do something? And Meera sat back and said, yes, I'm also guilty of doing this. I'm very sorry. Well, I'm really, really sorry. And I'll definitely do something about this. So very next morning, Meera went in haste to the village headman and said, knocking on the door and said, please come out. And the village headman came and said, what is it, Meera? What do you want? Because Meera happened to be his daughter. Then she said, please, Appa, you need to come and do something about that well. What do you mean well? Nobody wants it anymore. We all have these pipelines. You know, who needs a well? Appa, it's very, very important. A well is a source of water. We need to clean it. Please. Meera, we don't have the resources. We cannot do anything now. We'll just close the well if necessary. No, Appa, I will not agree to it. You have to clean the well. Otherwise, I'm not going to eat for the next few days. Okay, calm down. Another 2 days, village headman got a whole lot of people And they started going inside the well. Rubbish after rubbish came out, buckets and buckets of rubbish. Everybody is feeling very guilty because little Gopi recognized the biscuit wrapper. Another person recognized the huge chocolate bar cover. Everybody had guilt on their faces. They all said, yes, we are responsible for this, so we must help. So more and more people came. Together, they all worked. They got out all the garbage. And the well was so happy. She said, thank you, Meera, for taking care of me. Please take care of me from now on. And Meera said, that's a promise I'm going to make. Did you all hear? Yes, we all heard. Now we are responsible for the well. Remember, she's the one who gives us water, and water is the most important thing for us after air. And this you can take it further for children, saying that what is the more important? 3 things that are very important for human life: oxygen, water, and food. And which is the most important, which we cannot survive? Air is first. Only 3 seconds you can survive without air. You can survive only half an hour to 1 hour, depending on when you last drank water. Maybe for 6 hours maximum, you will die. And food is the least, because if you have eaten a good meal, say 6 hours previously, you can live for the next 2-3 days without food. Longest you can live up to 1 week, because the body will start taking body fat. That is why we store so much of fat on our body, so that in case you go through, brain is thinking starvation, I told you, brain is always negative. Oh, I will be starved one day, so accumulates weight so that it can draw on that and nourish the body. So this is something I learned, so I'm sharing with you. So that is a beautiful story. What came out of that story? All of us did it together, right? And did you notice one thing? The I in stories was there. Whenever you shared one line, you remembered it very clearly. Everything else was blur, right? Am I right? I noticed that. Every time you shared your own line, that came out perfectly. Everything else was like, okay, this. But kudos to you, Sindhu, and to you, all of you actually remember the entire story. For me, I have a pattern of remembering. I'll remember village, well, deep, voice, Meera, how she went, moonlight, like that I remember the story. So I can tell you the whole story if you want. Because I learned this from Roger Jenkins, who lives in Singapore. He told us, if you want to remember a story, just make a skeleton of it. So today when Karen shared that story, I remember it. I can go and share it now. The story of both the snow girl as well as the other story she shared with us. No, what was that? I forgot the title of that story, but she sang a song along with that. I'll tell you, I've written it down. So this is how I remember stories, and then I add my own songs to it. The Snow Daughter, and the other one also I remember.
Mr. Wiggle, that one?
That one I already know the story. Slop story. The slops. Woman peeling. It is so repetitive, no? So it's very easy to remember the stories. Potato, carrot, onion, and you cry when you peel the onion. Then take it and slop, throw it out. And 3 times she did that. And then 3rd time the little voice says, don't do this. And it's all over my house. So I remember the whole story now. So that's how I remember stories. And it's very important for all of us also to remember sequencing, because when you're telling stories, it has to be in sequence. Remember, listening skills are very important. If you don't listen carefully, you will miss out. You will miss out large portions of the story. Sometimes it happens to me where I forget the most important line. And that's another thing I learned on Eric Miller's platform. One storyteller shared that in case you forget a vital part of the story and you're coming towards the end and you've forgotten and you suddenly remember, you can always say, do you remember? Did I tell you about this? And then you tell that part of it. Not saying, oh, sorry, I forgot this. Never apologize, because then the audience will lose interest in what you're saying. So that was my workshop. I hope you all learned something from it. I also learned something, because I feel when we share information, always there's some nugget that you learn. I hope you all enjoyed the workshop and you have added something to your knowledge bank that you all can use in the future.
Thank you very much for the workshop. It really brought out how our value system is expressed in the stories that we choose to tell and that we create. It was a very good illustration of that idea.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you. And thank you so much for giving us this platform to create, to share workshops and stories. I'm very grateful to you.
You know, I was going to say, when you were asking for people's favorite stories, I really like that story, Stone Soup.
Yeah.
Because my value system is I like to create situations where many people can share. When I'm teaching in a classroom, I only get upset when the students refuse to speak. So Yeah, so I think my value system is and I feel everyone in the community needs to speak for the for me to be happy.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's very important as a workshop leader when people unmute, even if they don't want to put on their videos, at least unmute and acknowledge that somebody is actually sharing knowledge with you. Be a part of the workshop. Otherwise, there's no point in attending, right? If you're going to stay quiet and you're not going to put your camera on, it's almost like you're not there.
Mhm.
When you're present, either put on your video. Sometimes I attend, but I don't put on my video because I'm in a situation in my house where I can't be seen. But at least I unmute, or at least I put in the chat box to show that I am there, I'm listening. And when I'm there, I'm fully there. If I'm not able to be there, I don't attend. Like yesterday, I had to go out. I was so tempted to listen to Magdalene's workshop, but we were at a dinner and there's no way I could have just looked at my phone. I'm totally against that.
Mm,
And unfortunately, it's not been recorded, right, Eric?
correct.
So sad. Anyway, I'll attend a workshop sometime. So
Wonderful.
that is
Okay.
it. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank
Eric.
you very much. I'll stop recording now.
Yes, please.